Let's get Barrett's breakdown of the win and where they go moving forward here. Also, of course, the Eagles on the bye week here. They got a lot of momentum. They don't have a whole heck of a lot of injuries. Ertz and McKelvin due back for the Lions game. So it's not that kind of week where they have a bunch of guys banged up. So we'll get into that as well. But Barrett, yesterday they whipped them. Now, you were an Eagle. You won a Super Bowl with the Steelers. So you're probably a little torn yesterday watching that game. But they whipped that team yesterday. How surprising was it to see just physical dominance on both sides of the ball?
They systematically out-physical a Pittsburgh Steelers team. You don't usually hear that, and you don't usually think that would happen. But that's exactly what happened. They out-muscled this Steelers team, and you don't usually get that from a Steelers team. Usually that's what they hang their hat on, is to be very, very physical, don't make a lot of mistakes, and play hard. And by the end of the game, everybody on that line for the Steelers got beat up on both sides. They took control of the line of scrimmage right after that first drive the Steelers had, and both sides of the line were dominated by the Eagles.
Yeah, no question. That offensive line was very good yesterday. They lose Matthews, but they still were able to run the ball. And Barrett, let's talk about this because Pittsburgh came into the game number 2 in the league. They had only given up 101 yards total rushing through 2 games. So that's a pretty good run stopping team on that side of the ball. So what did you learn about the Eagles' running game yesterday?
Well, they would just stay consistent with it. This is the first time that they didn't really abandon it, for long stretches of time. The previous 2 games, they abandoned it because they didn't have the production that they felt as though they should have garnered by running the ball as many times as they did. This game, they stuck with it. They understood that if you can run the ball in the Pittsburgh Steelers, you, number one, keep Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown off the field, and D'Angelo Williams. You keep them off the field, number one. Then, number 2, you beat up on those guys, for the defense of the Steelers. That was the biggest thing. Shazar went out. They knocked him around a little bit. Timmons went out. Those are 2-star linebackers that are pretty good, and if you put those guys up against any other team, they rip them apart. And they were able to knock them out the game. So I thought that was huge, that this Eagles team is a really, really physical team. I can remember us, kind of talking about how Coach really went out there and kind of determined that, hey, we're going to be a physical team. We're going to practice hard. We're going to practice with pads on. We're going to bring guys all the way to the ground. And us as the media, we talked about them. We were like, what are you talking about? You shouldn't do that to your players. They're not going to be healthy, as they progress through the season. Why would you do that to your players? Well, once again, we didn't know what we were talking about. Doug Pederson did. He made these guys physical, which is altogether different from what they were last year. So I like the fact that this Eagles team is now one of the dominant physical teams in the league. They'll punch you in the mouth. They may not be physically talented as most teams, but they are a physical team, and that's what I like.
BB, you talked about the offensive line and how well they played yesterday. How does that change now with it looks like Lane Johnson will be out serving his suspension?
Well, it changes how your play selection is. That's for the most part. And also what personnel packages you put in. When you have a team that now has say what you want to say, it's definitely going to be a drop down in this offensive line, how they run the ball, how they pass the ball, simply because Lane Johnson was somebody that you could leave over there without sliding protection to, without chipping. He's the best offensive lineman they have on the team. So in saying that, he should have, he's at a point now where he's going to be out, and now you have to have guys step up. And I know Barber's going to be all right. He's going to be suspicious there, but he's not going to be the Pro Bowl player that Lane Johnson is, or will be in the future. So you got to slide to him now. You might keep a chipper over there next to him now. So there'll be a lot of ways in which they can't pass the ball like they used to, and as for running the ball, they also will be hampered by that also.
How about your take on Doug Pederson as a play caller? I know he was asked today about why he has such success coming right out of the gate. Has that been key to Wentz and the offense's success, Doug Pederson's play calling?
Absolutely. The fact that he can go out there and just like you said, he's thinking first, second, and third down in his mind as they go into the series. I didn't know coaches thought like that. I thought it was the next play up, but he's 2 or 3 plays deep in his play selection. That kind of threw me for a loop, So he's a lot more advanced than I thought he was as a play caller, and I see him doing a lot more things in the future simply because you have a quarterback that can, take it all in and then regurgitate it out on the field. He doesn't get beat by the same blitz twice. Once he sees it one time, he remembers that blitz, he remembers the formation, he remembers what happened during the play, which has allowed him to be a better player as the game progresses because he won't get caught with the same blitz again. So anytime you got a player like that can go out there and diagnose it and then not get caught with it again, that just goes to show, that they go when that play was wide open for this kid.
I think something interesting on the play calling is also he has trust in the depth of this team, too. He's rotating the running backs. You're seeing more of the DGB, got about 50% of the snaps yesterday. But, he is allowing the, second and third team guys to get some reps so that if called on, they're ready to go.
Well, look at it. He targets all seven. He targets 7 receivers, and out of 7 receivers, each one of them got at least 3 targets throughout the game. That's a lot, considering the fact he's targeted 7 players. I mean, 7 different guys got targeted at least 3 times or more. That just goes to show that this kid really doesn't understand how good he is. He's not really understanding that he is well beyond where he should be as a rookie. He's going out there and hitting. In fact, he went to Huff as many times he went to this last week. I couldn't believe it. He got Huff involved into the passing offense. We hadn't seen that before. And then, the fact that they were able to execute from the, bubble screens and things of that nature when the running game wasn't going, it just goes to show how smart this kid is and how much confidence this team has in him, his ability as a quarterback.
BB, the offense has been impressive so far, of course, but the one thing I kept hearing Jordan Matthews call for yesterday after the game was, hey, man, when Zach Ertz gets back, we're going to be over the moon. Zach Ertz isn't even in this offense the last couple of games, and how good can they be if he returns?
I mean, that's just virtually, shows they'll have Carl Blanco running any kind of formation they have. How does the defense go out and practice for a 3 tight end formation, which is a passing formation for the Eagles? I mean, that's different. Usually when you have 3 tight ends in, that's usually a heavy formation. That's when you go into your 4-minute offense or your goal line offense. That means we're going to run the ball down your throat when you put 3 tight ends in. But with these guys, it's totally different. They go out there and pass that. You can have they can be third and 3. You're thinking it's a run, but you have 2 tight ends that run like wide receivers. Burden and Ertz are just as fast as wide receivers in this league with the ability to go catch it, the ability to post up on DBs and still block. So your playbook opens up 50% more simply because these guys can block and they can go out there and be receivers as far as reception in the slot. So I mean that just goes to show that this offense is very versatile. Pick your poison against them. If you stop the run, they're going to pass on you. You stop the pass, they're going to run on you. You can't really be right when you're going against the offense that's clicking like this with a quarterback that understands how to use everybody on the field, all the receivers on the field.
And since we touched on the tight end position for a minute, how about what Brent Selleck said after the game about Carson Wentz? He said Carson Wentz is inspiring him. 10 years in the league, and he's inspired by that kid. Can you put a value or a tangible value on how much that means when you have a guy that's a rookie getting 10-year veterans to believe in him and buy what he's selling?
Man, it only gets things going. Just think about this. Not only, Selleck saying that, but think about how Jason Pederson's playing inspired. He was a major question mark at the end of the season and during the preseason because we didn't know how his health was going to be. But look at him. He's out there playing with a new vigor about himself. He's out there, playing as hard as he can. That's definitely not the same Jason Peters I saw playing for Chip Kelly last year. He's out there really dominating guys again. So I think they're going to be right over the stretch that Lane Johnson's not going to be in there simply because older veteran guys like Jason Peters are starting to play harder. Selleck is finding a way to get down the field, get open in the seam, I mean, it's like he's giving these guys a fountain of youth to go out there and play better, play harder, and play more youthful. So I like the fact that Carson has really changed the whole dynamic of this team, the locker room, and everybody's buying into what he's got going on.
You ever been on a team like that where there's just a new guy that comes in and just completely changes, the way a locker room, feels and reacts? I mean, have you ever been around a guy who's that infectious?
I won a Super Bowl with him. He was the same way. He came in and won 15 games for us, and that's Ben Roethlisberger when I was with the Steelers. That next year we won the Super Bowl. In fact, we should have been in the Super Bowl the year before against my Eagles. You know, he played that well, and the team believed in him that much. So this is a future Hall of Famer. I'm not saying that Carson's going to be a future Hall of Famer, but he's a lot more advanced than Ben Roethlisberger at this point in his career.
A lot of comparisons between the two. Do you think that's a good comparison, Wentz and Roethlisberger? You know, size, smaller school. Do you see that comparison, or do you go a different direction?
I would say that this is a Ben Roethlisberger in his second year as opposed to being in Ben's first year. If you're going to compare him, you got to compare him the right way. You got to compare him to Ben Roethlisberger his second year as opposed to Carson Wentz's first year. He's that more developed than Ben was at this point in his career, way more developed. He understands a lot more than Ben learned during this time period. I think he's let Ben during training camp his second year as opposed to Carson being his first year. He's that far along as far as his development as a quarterback.
All right. Now, you know, I'm sure you'll watch a lot of the film on this game and specifically Wentz during this bye week here, but what are some of the things, like we talk about a lot, Barrett, and you can attest to this, virtually every guy you've played with can make the throws. They have the talent. They have the accuracy, the arm strength. They can make throws. It's that between the ears portion, and Doug mentioned it today. You know, he exhausts the film. He's there at 5:30. He said his preparation is Manning-ish, you know, in terms of he just constantly watching film. There was a report last week that he was out on a date with his girlfriend, and he had his tablet with him watching film of the game. You know, do you see that in the way that he plays the game on Sunday? Forget the throws that he makes and forget the accuracy and some of his decisions. Is that part of the game where these guys succeed or fail?
That's definitely it, but because they say he has a photographic memory, that he can sit there and look at something and digest it. But then the biggest thing is when he gets on the field, he regurgitates it. That's the difference between being an average quarterback and understanding a playbook and really eating the playbook and understanding and being able to equate it to the field. A lot of guys can see a blitz, but they won't be able to react to the blitz because they really didn't break down what the play is supposed to be like during that blitz. Well, he does. If you blitz him one time and he sees that blitz, you're not going to catch him in that blitz again because once he sees that, he's going to diagnose and be like, all right, they did this to me last time. I remember they did this to me. Let me counter it by doing this. And that's what, you don't get a quarterback this young making those type of decisions, making those type of calls, thinking in his head where to react to what he's already seen. He rarely makes a mistake twice. And, it does got to be like, wow, this guy is the real deal, simply because he tells a guy one time what happened. Now he understands it. Now you're going on to the next thing, So he's just breaking things down so fast and so quick that it's really, got these veteran players, like, wow, let's go. We're ready to play now. We're going to compete right now. I mean, it's almost like he's too dumb to understand that he's this good, and he shouldn't be this good this early.
Well, which is different, where I know you've told us a couple of times the story of Hoying, but you were in that locker room with Hoying. Here's a guy who had the arm talent, had the skill set, but didn't have the between the ears ability. If you look at Hoying, you might say he's every bit as talented as a guy like Wentz, but just didn't have it between the ears. You've had firsthand knowledge of both sides, being on a team with Roethlisberger and being on a young quarterback, and being in a team with Hoying, a young quarterback.
Well, Hoying was a guy that he was told to throw the ball his whole rookie year. I mean, Gruden, when he was there, he was so smart in how he broke things down that Hoyer didn't have to read any defenses. Gruden would tell him, all right, we got two jets, all go. I want you to throw it to the seam receiver and make sure you get it there. He didn't have to read anything. He didn't have to do anything but throw it to that seam receiver. Well, when he go back the next year and he doesn't have Gruden leaves and goes to the Oakland Raiders, now he has to read defenses. Dana Bible thought he knew how to, but he did not know how to read defense. Dana Bible was the offensive coordinator. So when he gets in, he's starting from square one. He's starting with a quarterback that doesn't know really how to break down film, how to digest what he's supposed to digest. So it was a totally different locker room in the aspect that people didn't believe in that locker room that Hoying could do it. All 52 guys really believe that Carson Wentz can do it, and he's showing it.
We're talking with Barrett Brooks, talking a little Eagles football, and Barrett, a lot of the Wentz talk is he's getting all the attention, but the defense, that's pretty legit too. And I laughed yesterday when the show opened up and you mentioned the offense, and Seth goes, yeah, offensive lineman mentioned the offense. And, of course, he made the case for how good the defense is playing. How well do you think the defense is playing right now, and how much is that a part of the Eagles' success?
Well, the reason I say that, I mean, it goes without saying that we knew this defense was going to be a pretty good defense. You know, considering the fact that you have guys that really are 4-3 guys as opposed to the 3-4 what they played last year. I mean, Fletcher Cox 1-on-1, you cannot block him consistently 1-on-1 throughout an entire game. And it just goes to show you, David, what was his name? DeCastro, starting right guard, is a Pro Bowl player. He made the Pro Bowl last year. And Ponce is a Pro Bowl center. So the fact that, Cox destroyed those guys in the second half, trying to block them one-on-one, just goes to show this is a dominant defense. Brandon Graham may be the best rushing defensive lineman that we have right now on the team. And if you look at it, there's some really good ones out there. Curry's really good. Benny Logan's really good. Fletcher Cox is good. But at this point, Brandon Graham is showing he's the best pass rusher on the field. That's including Cox. So I like what you see from this defense. And Schwartz understands if he lets his big dogs eat, he can be very vanilla up front with the 4 guys rushing the ball. But then on the backside, he can get very, very exotic simply because he trusts the guys rushing the passer. I like it. I mean, look at what they were doing yesterday. They were in a hybrid type of secondary as opposed to zone and as opposed to man. It was almost like a robber type of defense, So when you pass it to a zone, somebody will latch on to you, and then the robber would come in behind it and cover any of the routes, that were coming after that. So anytime you can run that type of defense, it gives you autonomy to really do what you want to do on the tail end. And, Connor Barrett is rushing the passer pretty good. They have some guys that are really showing that they belong in that field. And there's enough reps on that field simply because everybody has to be fresh. You go out there, give your all for 5 or 6 plays, they're going to bring somebody good and just as capable to go out there and rush the passes so you can get a break, but then get your butt back in there.
And you touched on it a little bit. That was going to be my follow-up is, did the secondary take a major step forward yesterday? And if so, then how good can they be when Leotis McKelvin comes back healthy?
Well, I think Leo McKelvin is one of the, he's probably the second best corner on the team. But the good thing is they don't have to work him in there, and he can get healthy. Because, at this point, Jalen Mills is playing well enough to hold his own out there. Here he is going against Antonio Brown, the best receiver in the game. And, of course, he's going to take his bumps and bruises. But I thought he was physical out there. He pushed him around a little bit, and he played well against them. So, I mean, at this point, Ron Brooks is playing well. Nola Carroll is playing very well. And we're not even going to talk about the 2 safeties. McLeod and Jenkins, probably the best 10 in the league right now. And that's also considering the fact that they have the Legion of Boom up there in Seattle.
Hey, Barrett Brooks is with us, and then let's not keep out the special teams because that was something that Kelly's teams were pretty good at too. But one coach, there's a reason Fipp was a holdover because he really does a good job. And that block really, Wheaton drops that pass in the end zone, and then the Eagles get the block. And who knows what's different if, A, the guy catches that touchdown pass, and B, if they make that field goal.
Well, it turns the outlook of the game that early, and it really messed up Wheaton's whole psyche the rest of the game. So when you go in and you have Benny Logan blocking a kick like that, just set the tempo of the game. Once again, you got to give the special teams an A simply because they set the tone of the game. From the very onset of the game, they get a block, they turn around, they pin Donnie Jones pins him down, swings the field position. Anytime they wanted him to do it, he played a great game. This team is more balanced than I've seen any team in the league. I mean, they're very, very balanced. And I was asked a question yesterday, and then Seth was asked a question yesterday, is this team good enough to make it to the playoffs? I'm going to say this. If they keep playing the way they're playing and Carson just keeps his advances in his knowledge on how to, play against these defenses, they have a legit opportunity. And it's not just because they're playing a weak division. I can't see anybody in the division being better than the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they took them apart.
Well,
Dallas is not better than Pittsburgh.
Right. No, I heard you say
Washington.
I heard you say that on postgame after the Eagles. Barrett Brooks, of course, Eagles pre and postgame live on Comcast Sports. And I heard you say that. Like, all right, they just beat the Steelers. Now you don't expect them to dominate and play that well week in and week out. It's such a week-to-week proposition. But talent-wise, did we undervalue this roster? I mean, if they're able to go toe-to-toe with Pittsburgh, you would think, okay, they should be able to go toe-to-toe with just about anybody.
Absolutely.
Doesn't mean they're going to beat them. Doesn't mean they're going to beat them, but they should compete with anybody.
Well, they're going to be in the game. Put it like that. They are going to be in the game, and that's all you can ask from a team. When you're talking about a defense that is as good as those guys are seeming to be right now, they will be in the game. They will compete in every game that they're in. Offensively, if they can keep things going to where they're going, Carson continues to be the player that's not going to beat them, and that's the mentality that they have to have. Let other teams beat themselves. Don't beat yourself. And that's probably the smartest thing that I heard Ray Dickinson say. He said, "This is not a team that's going to beat themselves. They will allow you to beat yourself when you're playing against them."
A lot cleaner, a lot more disciplined.
I see them doing that.
A lot cleaner, a lot more disciplined team than they were a year ago. Well, the last 3 years. Even when they won 10 games, look, let's not kill Kelly. He won 20 games in 2 years, but even when they were winning, they were frustrating sometimes because they were sloppy.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And yesterday just showed how consistent they can be, how they can go out there and take the total game. And because they're physical and they don't beat themselves, they'll be in a lot of games next year.
All right, Barrett's breakdown here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, Barrett's on Breakfast on Broad tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock on the Comcast Network, and pre- and post-game for every Eagles game on Comcast Sportsnet Philadelphia. He won a Super Bowl with the Steelers. He watched those Steelers get decimated by the team that drafted him, the Philadelphia Eagles. Barrett, we'll talk to you soon, pal.
Appreciate it, guys. Pete, Mike, have a good one.